Do you want to get the live stream started?
Yep, doing it right now.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for not doing that before we started talking.
Peter, can you give me an idea of how many people we have? I have my display set up improperly.
There are 13 participants on this call, and I'm checking out here, and Brian will be your guide for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, we do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Good. Well, I'm sorry Peter has left, although I think Peter was the one that muted me during the.
I will say, David, I still have that power if I feel the need.
Oh darn!
But we are live now to the world.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a meeting of the committee to review amendments to the model rules on advertising. We are meeting now via Zoom pursuant to notices previously issued. It is the duty of all committee members to avoid conflicts of interest in the appearance of conflicts of interest in performing their duties as members of this committee to review the advertising rules. Any member of the committee who is aware of any personal conflicts or appearances with respect to their activities on behalf of this committee are requested to make that conflict known now, or to point that out as they become aware of it as we move on through the committee. Thank you all for joining us today. The purpose of our meeting is to review comments that we have received from the council. We published our report to the council at the April meeting and asked them to get back to us prior to our July meeting so that we could take into account any kind of comments we had as we approach the meeting in our next quarterly meeting. Therefore, with that, we do have a couple of housekeeping matters, and then we'll turn to our actual activity of the day. You have seen reports and minutes of our April 9th committee meeting. Is there a motion to accept those, or any corrections or comments to be noted about those minutes?
Jay White, move to accept.
Thank you, Jay. Second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Dorothy. Any questions, comments, or corrections that need to be made? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you.
David Warren has his hand up. I don't know.
Oh, I was seconding.
Okay.
I was trying to be technologically on the ball, but apparently I'm not.
Warren, old school, raised his hand as opposed to using his electronic voting materials. I understand that.
There you go. I'll do both.
All right. In that case, I think the first order of business is for us to look at any comments we have received since our report was published to the council in April of 2020. And so, Brian, I'll ask you to tell us what we have, what we've received.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So we did receive some comments, just a couple here, and I've included them in your materials. What I'm going to do right now is share my screen so you all can see the comments, and we'll make sure we're all looking at the same thing together. So as we go through, and I'll get to the committee report in just a second, but you can see here, Rick Buckner submitted some questions. And there weren't so much comments as much as questions about the general perspective of this committee on some of these advertising changes. And I think it was more so just to kind of really let us know about some concerns that he may have and that his district may have. He did not want to submit any formal comments, for or against at this time. He just wanted to raise these questions. But I will tell you, I did respond to Rick's email and gave him some background on some of the discussion that this committee had on these particular questions, about solicitation being, or the prohibited solicitation being limited to live person-to-person contact, as well as the notion, you can see there the question he has, what's the thinking about getting rid of the familiar notices that had accompanied solicitation letters? And of course, that was a part of these rule amendments, that or that requirement to have that warning on the outside of the envelope or the subject line of an email that this is an advertisement for legal services is removed under these amendments. So nevertheless, I wanted to share this with you, and Rick gave me permission to share this with you as far as just questions that maybe others in his districts or other folks across the state may have, but there's nothing that I think we need to act on at this point. The other comments that we received were from Alan Cobb and Scott Hart. Judge Cobb said that he thought the rule amendments looked good, and he commended the committee for the job that was accomplished here. And same thing with Scott Hart. He's reviewed the report and thought that it looked great, and certainly want to pass on his compliments as well. I will add that I did have one other conversation with somebody, not a counselor, but a member of the Office of Counsel, that I wanted to share. And if I can, I guess maybe just move on instead of, I don't know if there's anything to discuss about these comments, but
Go ahead and finish up with that, with whatever other comments you've received, including those from the Office of Counsel, Brian.
Okay. So I spoke with David Johnson in the Office of Counsel, who took a look at these rule amendments and offered some thoughts, and he had some thoughts really just on consistency. So I'm going to take us over to the committee report. This is the proposed committee report. And as you will see, or as you have seen in reading through this, it's largely based upon the interim report, but of course the language has been adjusted to be a more full report directly to the executive committee with the intention that this be published to the profession. Of course, as opposed to the prior report having a request that the council review the proposed changes and offer feedback, this particular report request the executive committee publish these proposed amendments for comment by the membership of the state bar. But I wanted to take you down to the actual rule amendments because I included some of the or noted some of the amendments that David had suggested or just brought to my attention. One is here, you have your own PDF and you're not following along on the screen. This is page 9 of 24 in the PDF. But here we are, you can see we are under rule 7.1. And one of the comments really here, this or charitable legal services organization, that was previously just an express statement explaining that it's not a public legal services organization. And he wanted there, I guess David's point was simply that we have referred previously to charitable legal services organization earlier in the rules. And so he thought that it was, oh, excuse me, it's right here, just in the sentence before. And so just for consistency's sake, he thought that the same terminology should be used there as it was, or here in this second sentence or the last sentence, as it was in the preceding sentence. I thought that was a fair point just for consistency's sake. It does not change the substance of it. It's just using the same terminology. And I thought that was an appropriate one. So I did make that change, but I wanted to make everyone aware of that change. The next comment that he had, and I'm just going to go through all of these, if that's all right, Mr. Chair, and see,
Yes, sir.
talk about them later. The next comment that he had was comment 8. And it was this description of issues, or I guess I should say practice areas that could be exempted from the unauthorized practice of law, where we list examples such as immigration law, federal tort claims, military law, and the like. David's comment was that this may not be necessary, that essentially 5.5 already sets these types of practice areas out as examples, and that listing them here really just kind of creates a scenario that if 5.5 is amended, then we would need to come back and potentially amend this particular comment. If for whatever reason, immigration law, I don't see how that would be taken out of the federal context, but just if any one of these for whatever reason was impacted by an amendment to 5.5, that they are listed, somewhat unnecessarily here as examples, because you can see the examples in 5.5, and any amendment to 5.5 would result in a need to amend 7.1. So he just suggested deleting them. And I think it's a fair comment. It's not material to the comment. It just provides additional example. But I just leave that to the committee for its consideration. The last change, and this is just a wording change, is down here under 7.2, the comments here. We previously just had the language here, which was a carryover from the prior rule, a legal service plan as opposed to a prepaid legal service plan. And of course, everywhere else in the comment, it refers to a prepaid legal service plan. So just as a matter of consistency, David suggested including the word prepaid legal service plan here instead of referring to it only as a legal service plan, just to ensure everyone understands we're still talking about the same thing. Those were the only three things that David had pointed out, just for kind of making this a bit more consistent, make sure that our wording is right on and clear. And I submit those to the committee for its consideration.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen first of all, the comments from the other counselors, which I don't think really happy for anyone to discuss any of those as we see them. If anybody wants to do that, I also think these three here, I think are good proofreading and good fly specking by David to catch matters, particularly for consistency's sake. But I don't want us to do anything that people feel is not that's inconsistent with where we are in handling our work. So questions, comments, issues with the three changes that the Office of Counsel, or at least David has suggested that we make here in Rule 7.1. Okay, seeing, and I can't see, but I'm sure Peter or Brian will let me know.
There's nobody's raising any hands, and David, I have you as a co-host now, so you should be able to see if there are hands.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So if there are no questions or comments, the chair would be looking for a motion to make the changes as suggested, as Brian discussed and as suggested by David Johnson, the three changes to for consistency purpose, if that is the will of the committee. Is there a motion?
Move, Mr. Chairman, Jay White.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Santa. We appreciate that. Now we have a proper motion and second in front of us. Questions, comments, thoughts from the committee at large with respect to these three technical corrections?
Mr. Chair, I just want to know if Brian recommends that we accept those changes.
Yes, I do. I do recommend that the committee accept these changes. Thank you, Todd.
That's all I had, David.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll proceed to go ahead and vote then. All those in favor of the three technical corrections as put forward by council, Mr. Oaten, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Those changes will be noted before we submit anything to the executive committee for consideration. That being the case, it looks as though we are would be ready for Roman numeral 4, which is approval of the committee report for publication. As Brian stated, what we would do is would be to lay this report before the executive committee with our recommendation that it be submitted to the council for publication to the in the State Bar Journal in the next publication for comment by the profession and by the public. That's the recommendation, or would be the next step in the process to approve these this report to the executive committee. So the chair.
David, Alice has her hand raised.
Okay. Oh, I see it right now. I'm sorry. Thank you, Alice.
Thanks, David. Am I muted? I'm not muted, am I?
Nope.
Oh, we got you.
Great. And I apologize that I'm bringing this up kind of here at the end, but I'm looking through the comments. I note that there are very few subheadings. I've always found the subheadings in the comment to really help people to navigate the comments. And since so much material that was previously substantive has now been moved into the comments, my suggestion is that as a part of your motion, you give Brian the literary license to do some subheads. That this is a non-substantive change, but it will help lawyers to navigate the revised rules and particularly the comments. And I just think that would be a good idea. It won't change the content of anything.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, you've heard the recommendation from the executive director, Ms. Mine, as to adding subheadings for clarification and particularly for aid in navigation of the new rules, and to allow Brian to insert those. Thoughts on that by the committee at large? Mr. Oden, thoughts by you that your boss has tasked you with another task here?
I'm happy
with that.
I'm happy to take on that task, especially for the clarity of all that read these rules.
I totally agree. And if we need a motion, I move that we include headers in the comments for that clarification as per what Ms. Mine indicated.
Roger, thank you for the motion to do that. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Discussion, comment on that. The headers would not be substantive. Comments themselves are for guidance, and the headers would be for that purpose as well. Comments, questions by members of the committee or by guests? I see no hands raised. In that case, we will proceed to vote on the motion, which is to add headers. And Dorothy, was your motion as well to then add, to send this on to the executive committee for, to recommend the executive committee send this to the council for publication?
Yes, I would include that in my motion.
Okay. And
Yes.
Todd, thank you for the second on that. All right, unless there's an objection, we'll do both these things in one vote. All those in favor then of allowing Mr. Oden to make certain changes for navigational purposes and then for submission of the report to the executive committee with the recommendation that it be published, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. I think that is the last item on our agenda. If things go smoothly in July, we will not meet again. It's possible, of course. Well, I'm sorry, I take that back. We will, of course, receive and review comments that come after publication. So you're not quite discharged yet, ladies and gentlemen. Your service continues to be a great value. Whoever said that about that we commend the members of the committee for their hard work. That's certainly true. Particularly commend Brian for getting this ship into port. While normally you would use sails on a craft of this magnitude, Brian has really had to use oars and not even a pair of oars, just one oar, this boat to dock. So thank you for getting us this far, Brian, and thanks to the committee for all of its hard work. With that, we will be adjourned, and I look forward to seeing you all by Zoom at various meetings in a couple of weeks.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
Dave.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
It's been a great experience. Appreciate it.
Everybody stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.